Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. You find yourself in a little room inside the Great Pyramid. And this is by choice. And in this place there is great majesty. The ancients have put together something that is world famous. And this is why you are here, but there is more. Dear ones, you would say this is a tomb, one of the greatest tombs of all. But it's more. The intent that went into this project for this man was about light. Part man, part God, all about light. You might say this room is his home. And I say is his home. We have said that Egypt comes alive. And some visit it for the stone and for the history. And some visit it because it comes alive, speaks to their consciousness. How does this feel to you now? Do you feel the respect I ask you to feel? It is a respect for those who built it, for the family of the one who it was built for those who came after him and built others. This is what I ask you to feel in this place. Don't you find it interesting that there's nothing on the wall? In fact, the walls are very smooth. I know, dear ones, you have been asked not to do ceremony in this place, and we respect that from the keepers and the stewards of the tomb. But don't you find it interesting there's no writing? We are told from the Egyptologists that there is more in here than just communication in hieroglyphics. There's no hieroglyphics. Dear ones, it's about sound. We told you earlier that the Egyptian sarcophagus in several of the times in Egypt was finely tuned to 440 cycles per second. This is not an accident, is it? This room has been tuned for frequencies, and when you sing some of them, the room rings in a resonance of that. That is no accident. And so the Egyptians, even the ancient ones, understood vibration, and they understood sound, and more. And that's what I'm going to discuss. I'm not going to discuss the esoterics like some want me to, because that is a road that is well traveled. It is also a distracting road, one that those would concentrate on and not concentrate on their own personal temple. But I am going to tell you something that helped them build this. Dear ones, early on we have given you information about the mathematics of the ancients. The evidence that in the Indus Valley, a civilization perhaps even before this one, there was evidence of high mathematics. In fact, not just high mathematics, but different mathematics. And we identified what it was. We told you at that time, it's the mathematics of the universe. It's the arithmetic of the universe. Everywhere you look in nature, in space, in Gaia, most everything you see resonates to 12s. You see this in Egypt. You saw it clearly in the Temple of the Hathor with the 12 zodiacs on the ceiling, the zodiac with the 12 houses. That's just 112. What about Gaia itself? The directions, 360 degrees. There are all manner of things in nature divisible by 3, 4, 6, and 12. 12 is the mathematics of the universe. There are 12 half steps between octaves in music. You might say, well, what a coincidence. This is more than math, is it not? Now we're getting involved in the vibrations in the air, natural ones. So the 12s we are talking about is a mathematics that the Egyptians knew and used. Dear ones, if you go into DNA, you're going to find the 3s and the 4s and the 6s. It is base 12. Nature is 12. All around you is 12. And you have put together everything in 10s. I'm going to give you some information. Base 10 is fundamentally flawed. And I'm going to tell you why. When you have base 12 mathematics and begin to understand the philosophy of it, it starts to enhance into other realizations. It leads to discovery. Mathematicians will tell you this is the beauty of math. For as you get into it more complicated, it then leads to other discoveries. What we want to tell you is that the Egyptians used this math. If it's the math of the universe, it is quantum math. Are you starting to follow me? It is very, very easy to go into quantum kinds of thinking when you start there with base 12. Let's talk about pi. Do you think that the Egyptians understood geometry? Shall we have a laugh? And that ratio, which is pi, is an irrational number. A number that has no end, no solution. Do you really think that that particular number, being a ratio of almost everything you see in the cosmos, should be an irrational number? And this brings this whole thing of perception into focus. It's not another kind of mathematics. You cannot translate base 12 into base 10, period. Because 12 is in color and 10 is in black and white. And so base 12 is conceptual mathematics, conceptual arithmetic, and leads into discoveries, inventions, ahas. Let me ask you, do you think Tesla worked out with a pencil and paper his discovery? And the answer was no. It simply came from a place in his head, and that is the next step. What I'm telling you about the Egyptians' base 12, I want you now to apply to you. And here is the concept. When you start developing inside yourself that piece and part that is God, that is the higher self, when you start to nurture it, when you start the compassion engine, it leads to discovery. You discover higher concepts, better ideas, healing your body, it's the same philosophy that I gave you for the Egyptians. The reason they had base 12 is because they began a society and a culture with light. Everything was about light. And it's metaphysical light. They understood the one God. Long before it was given to them yet again, they understood it. They understood the pathway to heaven. They made it easy and for everyone. This home is his afterlife preparation. You're sitting in this place that he prepared for himself so that he could enjoy that which was beyond the veil and perhaps even come back. This is high metaphysics. It is high mathematics. Don't be fooled by the color or the age of these things. As you begin for yourself to develop that which is inside, you will start getting discovery. One thing will enhance another, and you will not get it if you're only cerebral. If you're only thinking the puzzle, even with high ideas, you're not going to get good answers. It's only when you develop inside that quantum engine, which is you, that the solutions start to come. Not just inventions, Mr. Tesla, but solutions to life, real solutions. I know who's here. I know what you carry, what your desires are, what your fears are, what your limitations you think are. Look at this place. Are there any limitations to building this? When the king said to the architect, "Here's what I want," he said, "Sure." No limitations. He knew what was doable with enough time. Dear ones, what are the limitations in you right now? You're looking at the model. You're looking at a metaphor for you. Base 12 math is the metaphor for your own math inside you. It will lead to higher thinking. Take care of yourself first, and all things will be added to that. Don't look for metaphysical answers outside of yourself. This is the message, and always has been, of Kryon. Take a moment after I finish to ponder what I've said. Take a moment to think of where you are in such a majesty. There's such majesty. Don't be fooled by what it looks like or how much trouble it was to get to. Think about it. And so it is. Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. Today, you went to that place they call the Acropolis Hill. And I want to take a moment to tell you what you really saw. It is profound. Not for the historical reasons, but you see such a big picture of what we have been telling you now for over 2 decades. And I want to review with you a little of what the energies were that perhaps very few see. And then I want to project it onto the future. You're looking at Greek history. And we have said it before. Many would say that this is the place where so much thinking began. Thinking about self, about planet, about esoterics, about all things intellectual, about language and science, art, beauty, sculpture, architecture. And that there was so much advancement here in those areas so quickly. Indeed, if you go back as far as you can, this is the place where human beings started to examine God or the feeling of Creator in a very intellectual way. You can go to different places of the planet and you can see the beginnings of many kinds of beliefs. But in this particular place, you get to reveal something I'm going to identify. And what I'm going to identify now is spiritual evolution. It is so easy to see here. How it started, where it went, and perhaps where it's going. We've talked about the dispensations of energy that human beings have gone through that have to do with spiritual things. You would think that God would be self-evident. That a human being would be born and there would then be an intuitive sense that said there was a creator. And there is. As far back as you go. From the ancients who lived on the planet far before the Greeks, there was. But here you got to see it in a way that really paints spiritual evolution. It's interesting, but it's understandable that if there is a creator, that the first things that human beings would try to do would to be figured out who it is, what it is, and why it is. And in a very elementary beginning way, in spiritual evolution, you did not have the kind of esoteric thought you do today. Not at all. It had to start very, very simply. And what humans have done, literally since they began to operate with God, is to humanize God. It's understandable. That's all you have as a model, the psyche, the humanness. The greatest philosophers would humanize God. Even today, the greatest organized systems of spirituality continue to humanize God. But you saw it so clearly, did you not? On the Acropolis Hill. There you got the information of the 12 gods. Humans decided that God was a family. That makes sense. Because again, all humanity had was themselves. And so the model creator had to be like them. But they went the second mile in Greece. They made them dysfunctional. Now this is funny now, but they did it because that's who they were. And so it made sense to them that there would be disagreements and all of the things that humanity has with their gods. Now, before we go any further, I would like to bring up something. No matter who is describing God, no matter how elementary it is, whether it's in Egypt, whether it's in Greece, there is numerology involved that is accurate. Why 12? Why did Plato decide to split the soul into 3 intellectual parts? Even today, you teach the triad in so many ways, and currently in spiritual belief. So the numerology seemed to be accurate. There are many civilizations that had many gods, but none like this, for they intellectualized all of them. In Egypt, there were many gods. Sometimes through Egypt history, there was one god, Pharaoh. Unfortunately for them, he kept dying. And so then he was replaced. That then led to another system, because the Creator is not supposed to die. And so you have 12 immortals. That is a beginning. And you have to see what took place over eons of time, thousands of years. We sat in that which you call the state of Israel, not that long ago. And we told you that those who spoke Hebrew on that land, that you call the Jews, brought this planet a monotheistic God. And that was the next step. So you go from many gods to a monotheistic God. The master of love also spoke Hebrew. What an irony it is that the master was a Jew. And you see the evolution from many gods to one. You go from the dispensation, perhaps, of law to a dispensation of love. You moved into the dispensation of responsibility. And immediately you saw the issue. For 2,000 years, although you had a monotheistic God, it was still elementary. For now you decided to argue over who had it right. And even the major belief systems of the planet are split. One creative source, and wars about how to worship it. Like children in a playground, discovering the seeds of truth and not seeing what the truth really is. The dispensation of responsibility. And then there will be a further evolution, the final evolution, where they see the essence of God and realize that it applies to all humanity. That there is no right or wrong way to worship or to love God. And that culture can be different and appreciated and respected and understood. And there will be many ways, but all of them will be correct. For God is love. That is the step that you are now starting to move into. And in the process, those who are the most radicalized about what they believe is correct or not correct are the ones that will make the most noise. And that is because they start to see the devolution, the crumbling of the differences. light starts to be greater than dark. And you start to understand that God is not intellectual. God is not like a human. God is love, compassion, so much more than anything that a human being corporally is. And that revelation is something that you can capture and live. And that God is a caring God, not a judgmental God. Today, when you look at the most modern belief systems on the planet, you still have a humanized God. A God who will punish you and watch you, who doesn't want you to do this or that. And that, my dear ones, will eventually go away. The dehumanization of God is at hand when you start to realize that the creator of the universe is not human, does not think like a human, and never has. This age of responsibility starts to put upon you some things that you should think about. You've always been told how to worship. You've been carried along by others who said, do this and do that. They tell you which direction to face. They remind you of the mythology. They tell you about dark and negative energy and how to avoid it. And all you do is follow the example and go from one place to another, hoping you get it right. Suddenly the light is turned on and you realize that none of those things are accurate. They've been put upon you by human nature. That God is light, and the mythology starts to disappear. The traditions that you would hold clear for centuries start to disappear because you start evolving. And in that evolution, I will tell you what's next for you. This is a group that is going to do ceremony. Ceremony is like congratulations of energy, of self. It's celebration. That's what it is. And in that there is epiphany and realization. And I want to tell you the premise that we have been teaching for so long. It's time to change the entire paradigm of how you work with God. You wait for others to give you instructions of where to worship, how to worship, when to worship, how much, how long. It's part of the structure of your life. But dear ones, it's not a box. The age of responsibility means that at any time you wish, you are your own altar. God is inside you. If somebody says you have several hours of free time on a tour, it doesn't close the door to celebration. It means you can go into the forest with others if you wish, or just across the street to visit a tree. And you can use 3 hours to celebrate all by yourself, because that's the freedom of God. Don't let an activity or a historical site or the history lessons get in the way of how you feel at the moment about God. Don't compartmentalize it. Know that you are one who can worship and celebrate the beauty of God in you no matter where you are. In a closet, in a historic place that means nothing to sacredness at all. You are sacred. You are sacred. I feel a song coming on. And so it is.